Hi.
Good morning. Good morning,
Good
Surbhi.
morning. Good morning. How are you?
Fine, fine. Thank you. So, shall we start? Very good morning, participants and our resource person. Today's resource person, Dr. Surbhi Dahiya. Uh, she's going to present about the Indian media business, media industry. Many of you know about Surbhi is a star in our media academic. Anyway, I want to give a nice introduction about her. Dr. Surbhi is presently working as a professor and course director in the Department of English Journalism at Indian Institute of Mass Communication. I hope everyone know the IIMC is the top media institute in India. She started here as a correspondent with the Tribune and later worked with an ad agency as a media planner before shifting to academics. Professor Dahiya was the principal investigator for research project for Commonwealth Educational Media Center for Asia, SEMCA, and co-principal investigator for a project of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change under United Nations program. Professor Dahiya was a committee member for developing India's global media plan for print, electronic and online media budget for Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, and a technical committee evaluation member in India Brand Equity Foundation, Ministry of Commerce, as well as the technical committee member for Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion for selection of creative agency for startups India. She was an invited jury member in Akashvani for selection of national awards in several years. Dr. Dahiya was conferred with Women Economic Forum Award in last year for iconic women as an exceptional leaders of excellence. She won the national award by Public Relations Society of India for contribution to mass communication education in India and the Lifestyle Journalist Kick TLJ Jury Awards for excellence in the field of journalism education in 2009. Apart from that, she is visiting lot of universities and colleges across India and foreigns also. She presented several research papers and research works in international conferences in various countries. She is an invited speaker by UNESCO. We very much honor Dr. Surbhi is with us today. It's very important day for us. Now I invite Surbhi for her session. Surbhi, please join with us. You please take the session now.
So, thank you, Professor Arul.
Thank you.
It's an honor to address the media faculty who's participating in the faculty development program organized by you. You are a very good organizer. And I would today like to present on, the Indian media industry. I do not have any PPT per se. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, all right. We will just, talk about the Indian media industry and the emerging business models in the media industry today. Um, Also, we will talk about the size of the Indian media industry, the little bit about the ownership patterns, and how these business models are emerging, how different media houses are having different media, business models, and what is their future plan. So I will just start, on this line. Much before media organizations, they came to be recognized primarily as economic organizations with the profit and wealth generation being their bottom lines, as in any other business organization. So media organizations were for long seen mainly as social organizations, as all of us know, with an avowed objective of serving the society with a philanthropic, missionary, and altruistic zeal. So this approach towards the mass media, it was rooted in the communication theorists' earlier preoccupation with communication, which treated, which sort of treated or tended to follow a very different paradigm other than that of mass media. So the oldest and the most seasoned media houses in the country, they were born not out of an interest in the commercial profit making, while some others were born out of a need for, say, mirroring the voice of the society, of the people, amidst the nationalist movement and the freedom struggle. So if you talk about the pre-independence era, you will see that most of the papers, except the Times of India, which was then named as the Bombay Journal of Commerce, which started in 1838. So that's one of the oldest papers. So the Times of India, which started as the Bombay Journal of Commerce, was not started because of the freedom struggle, but the other papers like the Hindu or the Indian Express, they were, and the Hindustan, they were all started because they wanted to contribute in the national struggle. So, if you talk about the Times of India, the first owner and editor, Dr. J.E. Brennan, he was also the Secretary of Commerce. So, what he used to do is that he used to bring all the trade related news in his paper, and that paper used to cater to the British residents in India. But if you see other papers, the motive was very clear. For example, the Hindustan Times. So Hindustan Times was a paper which was started by the Akalis in 1924. So once the colonial rulers, they were ousted from the country, the media industry, it began to grow at an unprecedented pace. So the interests of the entrepreneurial classes, they also started taking precedence over everybody else's interests. So in this post-colonial period, the behavior of the mass media, it changed from a missionary to becoming a very professional in nature. So media organizations, they began to take shape of a strict business model and a proper industry whose primary motive was profit generation. Now the mass media organizations were now manifesting into full-fledged business entities that dealt in mass media organizations and the economic products and the economic product lines of the mass media messages rather than serving just as a vessel for communication or for information. So like their industrial counterparts, the mass media organizations, they also manufactured media products for consumption. So this called for standardization of products. So the rising consumption, if you see, of the media messages developed into the market standardization of its economic products, just similar to the production of industrial goods so produced by their industrial counterparts. Thus, the products were revamped to improve the sales and advertisers were brought in. So this called for planning, organizing, directing, coordinating, and controlling all the management principles of the media organization's activities with all the, overall objective of maximization of profits, management resources, manpower, media content, it became a necessity as well as the mantra of success. So some people would say that no, media is not an industry, it's just for a social good. But I would like to differ here because media organizations, media is one of the biggest industry in India. So if you see the FICCI reports way back in 2008 2009 when there was a recession all over the world, so it was Indian media industry that was booming, that was still making profit. So you can see an industry which is making a profit even in the times of recession. That is majorly a very very established industry in India. So after the nation, it stepped out of the infancy of the industrial age, media organizations, they grew by leaps and bounds, and they began to resemble a traditional business organization. So in the 20th century, India was entering into a highly complex industrial age. So number of media organizations were mushrooming, and the old ones were growing in size. So the digital age, brought ceaseless opportunities for expansion and for diversification of products. For example, we were talking about Times of India, so let's talk about Times of India. For example, this Bombay Journal of Commerce, when it became Times of India, so later, in 50s, only 1950s I'm talking, so they began diversifying, in all the segments. So they had an English paper called Times of India. They ventured into a Hindi segment with the Nav Bharat Times. They ventured into an economic segment with the Economic Times. They ventured into women, target audience, which they got through Femina. They ventured into different states. For example, they ventured into Maharashtra. So Maharashtra Times, they brought Mumbai Mirror. They brought in. They also brought in, Uh, I think six niche papers and 29 niche magazines. For example, Sports Star. So they were trying to capture the market, and diversify into all, say, languages, states, and so on and so forth. So they were venturing into women target audience, Hindi target audience. Those people who are interested in stock exchange. So all types of market they were capturing. Not only this, they also ventured into the radio segment with Radio Mirchi. Then they ventured into the TV segment with, say, Times Now, Zoom, ET Now. So now they have 8 channels. And they also ventured into an event management company called 360 Degrees. They also ventured into digital with, Times Internet Limited. So they also, acquired the Kannad, paper, Vijaya Kannad paper. So the essence of this is that the older media organizations, they began to grow, they began to expand, began to diversify, and they also, developed their own product. So, for example, in 2002. Times of India, the size of the broadsheet was reduced to an international size for becoming a more handy paper, and so on. So, as Robin Jeffrey has also said that, in a series of his articles, especially in EPW, that 3 factors helped the growth of the Indian language press: the growth of literacy, the rise of capitalism, and the spread of technology. So both offset technology and communication, they helped at that time. The use of fax, satellite editions, and that was the time for business when the message was clear that mass media is now an economic activity, and media firms or media organizations were now economic organizations striving and thriving on a passion for profit maximization. So over the time, modern media organizations, they have become highly sophisticated, and they have turned into media giants that were serving a gamut of product mix to their consumers, and they were now being managed by a highly trained professionals. And this in turn increased their viability to advertisers. So all of us know that advertising is sort of directly proportional to circulation. So basically the content was good, so you have more circulation, and when you have more circulation, you have better advertisers because it has more reach. So you have more advertisers, and then it further helps you to have more revenue and give the paper at a subsidized rate, and so thus the circulation again increases. So it's a circle, a vicious circle. So if you talk about economics, in economics, the production that is defined as an activity that involves conversion of resources or inputs like raw material and ideas and knowledge into an output like goods and services. So Doyle also, Gillian Doyle, he also defines firms as establishments where production is carried out and industries consist of a number of firms producing a commodity of the same market. So the concept of a media firm, he says, it spans sort of a variety of different types of business organizations. So media enterprises are strategically organized economic entities that focus on expanding media and whose central work is generating and marketing of media. So we can also assume that media business work in, generating and marketing of media, basically, and bundles around internally and externally generated content and its transformation into a medium, basically. So marketing is all about direct and indirect distribution of media content. So here in this prism, you can see that, media is restricted to a model of one to many communication with one sender and a large number of consumers earlier. But communication has taken a U-turn with the online media, because the online media has all the properties of being an interpersonal communication, mass communication. So you can interact one to one to many, and so on and so forth. So now, the models are also changing. We will be talking about the media management models today, but before that, we need to understand the Indian media industry. So for that, the first and the foremost thing is that we should know about the size of the Indian media industry, how big the Indian media industry is. So if you talk about the media and entertainment sector in India, so it has reached around INR 1.82 trillion. So I'll be giving you some facts and figures because these are important. You can also find them in some of the reports. You can find them in FICCI reports, you can find them in KPMG reports, you can find them in PricewaterhouseCoopers reports, and there are various other reports which will give you these figures. But FICCI is one of the trusted. This time FICCI came out with a report with EY, that is Ernest and Young. Sometimes it comes out with a report with KPMG. So it says that INR is sort of 1.82 trillion. So it's around US dollar 25.7 billion in 2019. And with its current trajectory, the media and entertainment sector in India, it is expected to cross around 2.4 trillion by 2022. So while which is the biggest media industry in India, people, when I ask this question, I don't know if you can respond to me. Arul, can they respond to me if I ask something?
Yes, yes, you can
Uh,
ask. Yeah.
all right. So what do you think? Which one do you think is the biggest media industry in India? Which segment?
Participants can unmute and interact with the resource person.
Yeah, anybody.
Madam, very good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Hello.
This is Dr. Fakir.
Hello.
Madam, the biggest.
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Uh,
I can't hear you. Sorry.
Fakir, your voice is not clear.
I can't hear him. Right?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear him, Aru?
No.
Uh,
Fakir, your voice is not coming.
Yeah, all right. So he has texted, I think, in the chat box.
Yes.
So yes, very right, very true. Television is having the biggest share in the Indian media industry, and it is followed by the print media. We usually think, because we are always talking about digital, so we think that digital is the biggest media industry in India. But as of now, television is the biggest media industry in India, followed by the print. So television and print, they retain their first and second position as of now. But if you talk about digital and films, so films was at number 3 till last year, but this year digital has overtaken the film entertainment segment in India. So digital has become the third. So while TV and print, they retained their positions as the two largest segments, digital media has overtook the filmed entertainment in 2019 to become the third largest segment in the media and entertainment industry. So digital subscription revenues, if you talk about, they're more than doubled from 2018 levels, and digital advertising revenues, they grew to command 24% of the total advertising spend. So the sector continues to grow at a rate faster than the GDP. So if you talk about the GDP of the country, the gross domestic product, so that is driven primarily by the growth in subscription-based, business models. So the subscription-based business models are growing. Even if you talk about all the digital organizations that have started in India, if you talk about the entrepreneurial journalism in India, if you even talk about organizations like, say, Alt News or Boom or India Spend or The Wire or The Quint or The Scroll or, all Bhartiya, who Shobna Bhartiya was, KK Birla's daughter. So the younger generation, when they took over in 1980s, they actually made the Indian media industry, change like anything. So they produced the papers, they changed the content, they changed the marketing strategy of the papers, they brought in new rules, they were well learned people, they studied abroad, they studied in Colombia, they studied in Pennsylvania. They brought in the rules and regulations of American papers, the British papers, and the scenario of the Indian media, it started to change. And BCCL took the lead, and they started to bring in innovations. So I read somewhere that the ventures which were not making profit, they were actually shut down. So if you talk about the Illustrated Weekly of India, which was one of the very, very famous weeklies of, brought out by the Times Group, it was shut on a uh, on a table. So in the Times Group, it is said that they had a billiards table and a chess table, and the pawns were represented various media houses. And in one of the meetings where Samir Jain was taking a meeting, and other CEOs were attending the meeting, uh, it is said that this Illustrated Weekly of India was shut down on that table itself with a stick. So this is how the new generation brought in new ideas, new innovations, and they shut down all the ventures which were not making profit. So they then ventured into profit maximization. So whatever gave them profit, they only tried to explore that. For example, in one of the interviews, the Jan brothers interviews by Ken Oleta, in an article called Citizen Jans, it is written that Jans said that we are not in the business of news. We are in the business of advertising. Since 90% of our revenues come from advertising, how can we be in a business of news? Which is, from a business perspective, maybe they are trying to earn. So establish the media industry as a business. So you see, the biggest media organization in India, the biggest media organization in India is BCCL. So BCCL saying that we are in the business of advertising, that means that the Indian media industry is a very big industry. So if you see how innovations creeped in the business models of these organizations is, for example, they brought in private treaties. So they brought in private treaties which was renamed as brand capital in 2008 after a report. So this brand capital, as of now in 2020, it has an association with more than 700 companies. And you have an association with a company and you promote them. So promote them in the sense that you are doing free advertising for them. You're not charging anything for a particular ad, but you are giving them space, you're giving them time, and then you ask for an equity in their profit, in their annual share. So you have an MOU signed with that organization or that company, and you promote them, you advertise for them, you give them space, you give them time, and then you take a 15% equity, either in the form of a property or in the form of cash or in the form of whatever. So if you have an association with 600 to 700 companies, that means they are earning it. And media industry is only pegged at the profit maximization. But at the same time, content is very important for them, because content is important because, without content, circulation won't happen, and without circulation, advertisers won't, come in. So this is, as I said, a vicious circle. So we were talking about the ownership patterns in India. So if you see, for the major media organizations in India, the ownership patterns are changing because a lot of corporatization is happening. There's a nexus between the political parties, the media houses, and the journalists also, which came to light a few years back. May Basically, because after the Neera leak of the Neera Radia tapes. So if you see the Neera Radia tapes in the 2G scam, they must be available in online also. But if you want, I can also share the tapes. So you see that after the leaking of these Neera Radia, do you know who investigated it? The income tax department investigated it. And when income tax department was investigating it, they stumbled on some sham transactions, which led to the uh, you know uh, realization of fact that how corporatization and politicization of media has happened. So, how 9X and NewsX were shown as linked companies, and there was a firm called New Silk Route, which is said to flout the rules of FDI, and how, in surrogate media ownership was also there. So it is said that in 2008 only ETV was transferred to RIL, and all of us have witnessed that in 2012 or 14 how Mukesh Ambani took over Network 18. So Network 18 was a bouquet of 18 channels which was run by Raghav Behel and his wife Ritu Kapoor and others. So how Network 18 was bought by Reliance. So you understand how the corporate bodies, the richest man in India is also the one of the biggest media barons in India. So what impact will it have in the media industry? Similarly, if you talk about NDTV, so Oswal Green Tech has a stake of around, say, 27% in NDTV. So similarly, you have Living Media Group. So all groups, if you see, mostly have either the corporate acquisition, or they have a corporate share in it, or they have a joint venture or an MOU signed with them, or you see in their board of directors, if you see, you will find names as big as Memani, or say Devashwar, who's no more, and say Piyush Pandey and all. So there are, board of directors full of corporate houses in India. And on the other hand, you will see that a lot of politicization of or media companies is also happening. So a lot of politicization, a lot of political parties who are owning media houses in India, or they have a stake in media house in India, or they have separate state channels, run in various states. The Jaya Lalita is no more, but then she had, Jaya Max, Jaya TV. So there are so many. Karunanidhi, Sun TV, and then if you talk
Kavanya
about,
TV.
yeah, then if you talk about Chintu TV, Aditya TV, Khushi TV, all TV channels on the names of their kids, or grandchildren, or so on and so forth. So there are a lot of examples. There's a full-fledged list that I have, around 32 prominent uh, political parties owning politically the channels, and other media houses in India. So what the basic point is that if you talk about the ownership patterns in India, it is changing. A lot of corporatization is happening, a lot of politicization is happening, a lot of brand capital is happening, a lot of partnering with other companies is happening, a lot of nexus between the political parties, journalists, government, that's a whole sort of a nexus which the layman would never understand. Even if you teach them media literacy, you can teach them what is fake news, but they will never understand. They will never. Just a second. Just a second. So the layman will never understand, what is happening behind the scenes. So this ownership pattern is very, very important. So let us now come to other own this business models. So if you talk about the business dynamics, it is essential to understand the business models that have emerged in the media industry in the recent years. So an organization or an enterprising entity which is engaged in commercial, industrial, professional activity, company adopts and follows, they are a part of the business model. So strategic intent enunciation, if you talk about, it talks about the strategy, the vision, the mission, the goals, and the objectives of an organization. So all the business, that business organizations that we are talking about, they have different business models. So it acts like a backbone of the revenue stream in any organization, and all the strategies, they are built according to the basic model that one follows. So thus you can say that a business model is a description of a rationale of how a company creates, delivers, captures value for itself as well as its consumers or customers. So aside from the resource based model that I just discussed, and the market focused model that I just discussed, so media organizations follow various other models to generate revenue and market expansion. So media organizations, say in print sector, they rely on the subscription and the distribution and advertising revenues models, to name a few. So especially in the face of the India's changing face, or the media's industry's changing face. So subscription based models, they are based on idea of selling a product, or service, product or service, to receive monthly or yearly, say recurring subscription revenues. So in a sense, subscription based models, they focus on the way the revenue is made, so that a single consumer, it pays multiple payments for prolonged access to a good or a service. So a distribution, if you talk about the distribution based business model, is one in which the company's survival depends on its ability to have one or a few key distribution channels to connect to its final user or consumers. So it is important to notice that almost any business can be classified as a distribution based business model, as there is no company that can survive without distribution. So if you talk about the third model, the advertising led model, so it is a strategic use of advertising medium with a goal of reaching a specific target audience. Now, an advertising medium is a type of media or a vehicle the advertising is placed on. The advertiser pays money to a medium that floats the former's advertisements. The medium charges money for the display of advertisements and often generate a substantial amount of their revenue through the allowance of such advertisements. So print media usually uses this method to generate a substantial amount of the revenue. So another model that I'm going to talk about is this pay to go. Pay to go is called as the utility model, utility business model. So this utility business model, it charges as per the usage of the product or service. So whatever you are utilizing, you're paying for that. So often print media uses this technique to sell their issues. So for example, the selling of the newspaper off the stands of the stores. So even though one might argue that the usage of this model by print media is not direct, so in that sense, the consumers purchasing the individual copies of newspaper issue pay for each such piece which is bought. So it directly to the store they can pay, or but in the ever prevailing digital world, this nexus is, pertinent to highlight the distinct strategy of print media to stay afloat in this business. So as these print legacies, they have diversified into radio and TV sectors as well. So it is important to look at the emerging business models in these sectors now. So the introduction of hyper localism and multi-platform approach into the radio industry to reach local audiences is also worth noting. Hyper localism means having an unyielding focus on local content, promotions, and community engagement. So the opportunity for hyper localism is growing very quickly across many markets. As radio and TV and maybe newspapers increasingly, because they rely on more syndicated and national content. So many local media are not very local at all anymore, so including their community actions. So meanwhile, consumers desire for hyper local service, it has fueled the growth of community and promotion based websites and social websites, even community radio and all. So some of these new media outlets are quickly establishing a benchmark, or in the absence of the true local media from the traditional outlets, because traditional outlets are more national in nature. So hyper localism requires staff, infrastructure, and an investment to the resources, but returning to the harvest of this low hanging fruit is critical basically for radio's survival. And this year, as I told you, radio has shown a decline of 7.5%. So thus, it is a key component of radio's new business model. Now, multi-platform means the go it along days of an AM or FM service, they are gone. So the new opportunity that exists today is in building successful brands and in content creation. So content can be disseminated over, say, internet or cell phones or iPods or other portable devices as early as it can broadcast over the traditional FM platforms. Now, working with local media partners in print, in TV, in internet, will be critical to winning competitive battles. So in traditional media also, and in new media, digital organizations also, it is very important to work locally with organizations which are having local presence. You know what big media organizations are doing? They are trying to buy the smaller media organizations which have a local presence. The business model of these organizations are changing. Now, if you talk about Dainik Jagran, tell me in last 5 years if it has opened any edition in any city in India. No, because Dainik Jagran has not opened any edition in any new city in India, contrary to Dainik Bhaskar, because the business model of Jagran is now only, it thrives on acquisition and mergers. So not even mergers, it believes in acquisition. So Dainik Jagran is totally working on a business model which is acquisition model. So they are trying to acquire the smaller fishes and which are local in nature in that particular area. So this is the business model of Jagran. If you talk about the business model of Bhaskar, they are trying to expand like anything. So they are trying to be number one and number two in any city that they launch their paper, even on the first day. They have that capacity. So if you talk about the Jaipur edition, when they launched the Jaipur edition, so they that was based on a survey. So they do a feed forward sort of a kind of a pre-survey site sort of a kind. What are people looking for in that area? So they are going into regionalization. So that regionalization is helping them out to grow. That is their business model. So I talked about the business model of Hindu, which is an increased cover price. I talked about the business model of Z Group. I talked about the business model of Dainik Jagran. I talked about the business model of Bhaskar. I talked about the business model of the Times Group, and also the HT, which is also, HT recently, if you go to the newsroom of HT, it has an integrated newsroom. So, all the digital print, every, uh, news go from that newsroom. Now, they have earlier they were bringing out the print edition first and then the digital edition, but from the last month they have now come up with a digital first edition. That means they prepare their digital edition first and then the print goes. So that's how the business models are changing. So the new, I was talking about the radio business model. So the new radio business model incorporates many, new revenue streams that are currently either minimal or non-existent. So the mix of revenue streams may vary from, market to market. In some markets, the optimum arrangement mix may favor the use of digital opportunities, while in others, it may focus on events and promotions to generate revenue. In any case, the common theme of the new business model is local. So going local is hyper localism is the new mantra for the radio. Now, let's talk about a TV a bit. Diversification in the television vertical, which has opened up the new avenues for or opportunities for organization. It relies on an attention merchant business model. So you must not have heard about this word. So one of the business models of TV now is an attention merchant, monopolistic. Being, it's not completely monopolistic. Our media organizations are, or media industry is oligopolistic at present. Um, so attention merchant business models that generate, revenue by investing in human attention. That's what I told in the beginning, that our our media industry is growing to a D2C model, direct to consumers. So, in attention merchant business model also that generates revenue by investing in human attention, it is called as attention merchant business model. So these types of business models run on attention merchant who works on grabbing the attention or the focus. So a monopolistic market, if you see, is a theoretical construct that describes a market where only one company may offer to, different sources and channels. But in a purely monopolistic model, the monopoly firms can resist output, raise prices, and enjoy super, normal profits. But an agency business model is one that is based on a client, paying an agency a fee for its services. So the fee based on the number of full-time employees, or maybe, working on that business, as well as the scope of the business that the agency handles. So the different television organizations use this agency based model also to promote their network. And I've already talked about the digital models. We've talked about the print media models. We've talked about the advertising based models. We've talked about, yes, hidden revenue business model is also there. So hidden revenue business model, you will not even come to know how they are earning. So for example, I told you about this brand capital. So advertorial, if an advertorial is printed in a paper for which, they are taking a charge, or maybe they are promoting that company free of cost for the whole year and then take an equity share. So that is a sort of a hidden revenue, business model. As the name suggests, they have business models hidden. So the most popular companies who follow these business models are Google and Facebook. So I talk about the digital media management models, and Google and Facebook are following the hidden revenue business model. So subscription based, no, I was talking about Google and Facebook. So they are entirely based on advertising revenues generated when people click on advertisements. So every time the customer clicks on the link of the Google, which says, add next to its company, it gets paid by the advertising firm. So same goes for Facebook, wherein the news feed, is a place where Facebook monetizes its advertising revenues. So subscription-based business models for more than a decade in the past, they have relied on the fixed schedules of the business media businesses. So people used to watch, late night shows, for example, which were live or repeat or telecast, of the same show on the next day morning. But with the increase in the usage of YouTube videos, online video streaming companies like Netflix have gained popularity. So Netflix is an on-demand subscription-based business model only. So wherein, you know, uh, the subscribers can take a subscription wherever they want to watch a particular TV show or a movie or their subscription at their own convenience. So Netflix, Amazon, instant news business, this is called as instant news business model. So instant news business model encompasses the dire need of the audience. People want to know what is happening around the world. And uh, I think somebody sent a message. I missed it. You need to. I have only 15 minutes. Yes. Okay. So I got an indication basically. So I think Dr. Arul can tell me when to stop. I can go on. So what happens is that instant news business, I was talking about instant news business models, and it encompasses I said, the dire need of the audience and what people want to know and what is happening around the world instantly. So Facebook is serving the purpose partly, we share news on Twitter or on Facebook, but in such cases, you have apps like the digital organizations that have started, for example, InShots. So in shots, like apps like InShots, which provide news in 60 seconds and in 60 words, so instantly they have come to limelight. So Twitter also, serves the purpose of instant news sometimes in 60 seconds or with the trending hashtags. So users can simply check the trending hashtags to know what is the current topic, what's happening around. So news apps, Twitter, etc., other business models. The freemium model applies a clever strategy of drawing the customers in with a free product while making certain features exclusive available to the premium users, which are the paid users. So maybe Skype or gaming, can be a good example of this. So I think today we have discussed about the Indian media industry, how it is growing, how the industry looked pre-independence, how it looked post-independence, how it looked after joining off the new generation in India, how it looked post-independence with the transponder bid, how it looked post-millennium, and how it looked post-digitization, and what is the size of the Indian media industry, which segments grew, which segments stopped, which segments are fastest growing, what is the new tariff order, what is the impact of that, what is FDI, how 26% FDI in the digital segment is making waves. We also discussed about the size of cost, and we discussed about the business models in the print industry and the television industry and the radio industry and the digital industry. So I think I'll rest my case here, and over to you, Professor Arul.
Thank you, Surbhi. It was a fantastic session. You covered the world media business and the Indian media across pan-India level. It was a very wonderful session. I thank Dr. Surbhi on behalf of me and on behalf of our institution, Anna University. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Arul. If anybody has a question, I'll be happy to take it. I have 5-10 minutes if you want. As you know, I have to leave for Rajasthan then. So
Okay.
if there's any question,
maybe next session is also there at 11:30.
all right.
We can finish it.
Respected madam,
Yes, please.
madam, you have explored on the different pragmatic approach of the cinematography and cinema field especially, and FDI also you have spoke of how many percentage everything. This is all exploring and it is thought provoking. Thank you for a wonderful session.